Okay, so GRIME arrived on the Nintendo Switch a couple of days ago, a Metroidvania that can rather be seen as a Soulsvania, since the game probably drew inspiration from the Dark Souls games. The analogy may seem far-fetched, as GRIME is a 2D game and Dark Souls is experienced in 3D. But despite the difference, there are similarities in challenging enemies and bosses, and that you usually have to defeat a boss in order to progress in the game. GRIME is not a new game, as it has been available for a couple of years. Since before, GRIME has been launched for Xbox, PlayStation and Windows, but now it's possible to play the game on the Switch. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give a thumbs up. So this is a big adventure that really puts a lot of emphasis on exploration and boss battles. It is, in my opinion, a very challenging game, bordering on being unforgiving. Both the regular enemies, mini-bosses and main bosses come with an arsenal of abilities that can test your skills. And as far as I know, you can't change the difficulty, only one level of difficulty applies. So this is a game that I recommend to anyone who likes challenges. But then the question is, why it's so challenging? First of all, I want to say that the bosses have access to a range of attacks that can easily kill you if you don't know what you are doing. And it's not that it gets harder the further you go. I'd rather say that it's tough right from the start. So the challenge is always there. This is the second boss of the game. You fight two bosses at once. I think I sat with these bosses for an hour before I got used to the mechanics. You might think it's frustrating, but I'd rather say it's extremely fun. I noticed how I gradually understood their patterns and how the bosses use their abilities. In this way, there was a clear progression all along. But when you think you have eliminated a boss, a new phase often awaits, and the new phases can be completely different and definitely more difficult than the previous ones. But when you do win, it feels rewarding, like you have achieved something. And that is one of the great takeaways from this game, that the game puts you to the test and that in the end you emerge as a worthy winner. As for the visuals, GRIME is a pretty creepy game. Many environments go in tones that can be experienced as gloomy and dark, but it really creates a feeling of being in a world you want to get away from. I would argue that a combination of terrifying monsters against the gloomy environments creates a unified experience. Some areas, however, go in lighter tones, which is a distinct and rather nice difference to what we otherwise see. So it's not like you're constantly running around down in caves, there are exceptions. Also, most places in the game take advantage of parallax scrolling to create depth, and for the most part it looks really good. So now I want to mention a couple of things I didn't like about the game. Loading times on the Nintendo Switch are relatively long. Whether you start up the game, use a checkpoint or respawn after dying, you can expect to have to wait for the game to start up. Basically, it's not a huge problem, but since the interruptions can be many, there will also be many occasions when the game has to be loaded. And here I don't know what is going on. I can't progress in the game until the percentage is 100. I'll be honest and say that I have probably never seen this before. An in-game percentage meter that runs while playing. Then we have the size of the text. In the menu you can set if you want to see larger text. Something I recommend choosing, especially if you play handheld. This is because the text is ridiculously small, but I wonder if it really helps, because according to what I have experienced, the text continues to be very small even if I click the text box. The difference appears to be minimal. This should be fixed. Here are some pictures of how the menu is experienced in handheld mode. I don't know about you, but personally I think the text is way too small. The game's performance gives a mixed impression. Some parts flow better than others, and on a couple of occasions I noticed the game stuttering, especially when many moving animations were in circulation at the same time. However, I would like to add that the boss fights were stable. Rarely did I feel that the battles became unfair due to a possibly poor frame rate. And in a game where the bosses are a central part of the content, everything has to work 100%, and I think the boss fights deliver. They work very well. I also experienced some pop-ins. Moving from left to right, I could see a giant boulder disappear and reappear. But despite this, I want to say that the game generally flows quite well on the Switch. There are some small issues here and there, but overall the game has an acceptable performance. The control is generally easy to handle. The main abilities you have access to are jumping, using melee weapons with different speed and strength, and ranged weapons that put stacking debuffs on the enemy. You also have access to a dash, which is useful for attacking the enemy from behind or reaching new platforms. And the longer you play, the more abilities you gain access to. But the most important abilities cost energy, which is indicated by a force bar. I understand that the purpose is for you to be economical with your resources, but most of the time I just found it frustrating. It was annoying to run out of energy, which sometimes put me in a paralyzed state. This led to the enemy easily gaining the upper hand and being able to hurt me. But perhaps the most unique ability in the game is called Absorb. This is a special ability used to damage and defend against the enemy. But Absorb comes with many other benefits that add to the ability's value. The overall impression of the control is that it feels easy to use, and if you want to change the control scheme, there is a simply designed menu where you can change buttons to your liking. So GRIME on Nintendo Switch is a game I can recommend to those who appreciate Metroidvania games. A comprehensive adventure that offers tons of exploration and challenging enemies. In addition, there are tons of items to find. You can build sets of chest, hands and legs and thus get bonuses, but there are also loads of other items that can benefit you in different ways. For example, your character can level up, and sometimes you find items that give extra experience. So the rewards are many in this game, both when you manage to eliminate a tough boss, but also when you get hold of exquisite items. GRIME costs $25 in Nintendo's eShop, which can be seen as a high price tag, but I would argue that you get a big game that will take many hours to get through. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I review new games every week. Have a good day. See ya!